So in the last lecture, we took a look at the structure of the navigation menu that WordPress generates. And as you can see, for each item, WordPress adds some useful classes, like the object type if it's a page or a post, and if it has children, and the ID of the item and stuff like that. So let's now uncomment the styles. And I just want to give you some tips when styling these menus. So when you're styling menu items, always use the greater than sign here in your CSS, which is the direct child. And that's because if you have submenus and you don't use the direct child, you will end up styling submenu children, and probably you don't need that. So as you can see here, we have a submenu, and the A tag here is definitely going to be styled differently than the submenu A tag. So in my styles, I always use the direct child sign in order to not mess with the submenu children. Another thing, to style the submenus, I use the absolute positioning. So if the li of the menu item that has children has a class called open, the submenu would have a display block, and it will be absolutely positioned in order to look like this. And the reason why I use the class open to display a block for the submenu, I know you might be thinking this could be done using CSS. So using CSS, when you hover on the parent menu item, you can target the child, submenu, and display block only using CSS. But the reason I use this class is that I wanted to do it with JavaScript because it will help us in the accessibility section that we will talk about later. So let's now write the JavaScript that will add and remove this class on hover. So I'm gonna go to my folder, and in the JS, in the assets, in the source, I'm gonna add in the components folder navigation.js, and then include it in the bundle. And then inside navigation.js, let's import $sign from jQuery. So let's take a look at our classes that we need to target. So we have the menu is wrapped in a c-navigation class, and then a menu item will have a class of menu item, but we need to target only menu items that has children. So we will target menu item has children class. So let's do that. Let's create an event listener on the c-navigation, and we need to do event delegation here. So I'm going to use the on mouse enter, and we need to target menu dash item dash has dash children. So we could have done that directly without the event delegation and then remove this, but I intended to do it this way, and you will know why I did it this way later. So let's add the third argument here, which is the callback function, which takes the event as an argument. So this is an arrow function, which is new in ES6. And if you use arrow function as a callback for an event, you can't use this. Instead, you can use E, which is the event, and then the current target. And this will be the current target, which is this class that we hovered on. So if you hovered on a menu item with this class, we need to add class open. And then mouse leave, we need to remove the class open. So let's actually copy this and paste it. And instead of mouse enter, we'll now type mouse leave. And instead of add class, remove class. So let's see now, and as you can see, it's working. It's adding the class open when we hover on the item, and when we hover away, it removes the class open. So let's take a look at the finished menu here, and let's see what else we can do now. So now we can add these arrows, icons, for menu items that have children. And also for children that have sub-children, we should add another icon which will point to the right. So let's first create a child menu with submenus. So Let's do this and save. And now we'll have this child menu will have submenus. So in order to add these icons, WordPress provides filters in order to filter each navigation menu title. So let's go to navigation.php and let's add this filter. So let's create a function called, of course, prefix, and then let's call it drop down icon. And this filter receives 4 parameters: the title, which is the navigation label that we need to filter, and the item. And the item is, remember we mentioned that the navigation menu item is a post object. So this item is basically the post object that will contain all the information about this post, or this menu item, which is a post. And the third one is args, and the args are the arguments that we passed in the WP nav menu, so it will contain the theme location. And finally the depth, and the depth is how deep this menu item is. So this is the first level. It has a depth of 0, and this first submenu have a depth of 1, and this one a depth of 2, and so on. Alright, so let's now hook this filter. So add filter, and it's called nav menu item title, and we'll give it a function. And since we are having arguments here, so we should define how many arguments we have, so 4, and the priority is the default priority, which is 10. So this filter will run for all your menus and all your menu items. So it will run for this menu, it will filter this menu item, and this one, and this one, and this one, and the children. And same if we have another menu. So if you have another menu somewhere in the footer, for example, this filter will also run. But in some cases, maybe we need to run it only for a specific menu. So to check that, we add an if condition, and then get the theme location from the args. And as I mentioned, the args are the args that we gave to the WP nav menu. So it has the theme location. So let's copy main menu, and if the theme location is main menu, then we'll proceed. Otherwise, we don't need to run this filter on the other menus. The second thing we need to check, we only need to add these icons for menu items that have children, right? So to check that, let's add another if condition, and this will be available in the item, which is the navigation post object. This object will have a property classes, and classes will contain all the classes that are generated for this menu item, and this will be an array of classes. So we'll check if this array has a menu item has children, and if so, we'll proceed. So to do that, we'll use a function called inArray, and this obviously checks if something exists in an array. So if menu item has children exists in this array, the array of classes, then proceed. And the last thing we need to check if this menu item that has children has a depth of 0, so we'll add a down icon, or a depth of more than 0, so we'll have a right direction icon. And we already have the depth parameter here in the arguments. So if depth is 0, we'll display the icon for the down direction icon, and else the right direction icon. So remember, this is a filter, so we have the title and we need to filter it and return it. So the last thing is to return the title, and before returning it, we can add some stuff to it. So let's add the icon, so title, and then append the icon to it, and the icon is an iTag with a class FA, which is font awesome icon, and angle dash down. And for accessibility also, icons are often given ARIA hidden, true, and then close the I tag. And the same for the right icon. We just need to change the class, which is right, angle right. So let's see now. And we now have our down icon and our right icon. And it's not properly styled for a reason, you will see why later. So I think now we're ready to create the mega menu, which is simpler than you expect. And then we'll finally do the accessibility thing. So see you in the next section.